There we go. Chalo, let's begin. Big namaste to everyone. Here we go. Hanuman Das ji is here as well. Right on time. Perfect. Namaste to everyone. My name is Sumit Sharma. I know lots of you. For those that don't, I look after some organizations within our Parivar, namely the Vichar Manthan podcast and Vani Speakers. If you want more information on that, do let me know afterwards. But today, this is about men's mental health. So we're breaking the silence around men's mental health, and we're trying to understand that through a Dharmic lens. So we're going to call this Purush Manas. So this is a HSS Yuva webinar. We've got some fantastic guests that are going to help us understand a little bit more about the topic, break down some of the stigma, and see how we can understand this great topic through a Dharmic lens, through the Hindu Sanskriti that we all come from. So just to let everyone know, this meeting is being recorded. We will share this video around later. If you have questions, put them in the chat window. If you've got suggestions on how we can do this better, please contact us afterwards. So the format of this session will be as follows. I'll give each of the panelists 5 minutes to introduce some opening remarks, tell us about their background and how this topic is important to them and how it relates back to the Hindu community. Then we'll go into a half hour, 45 minutes panel discussion, and then we can open up the floor for Q&A. And so thank you to everyone that's helped this become a reality. So let's start with our first guest, which is Tushar Shah, a lifelong Swayamsevak. He's been involved with HSS UK for over 45 years, started in Birmingham and now lives in Reading. He's currently serving as the Saha Kendriya Sampark Pramukh. So that means he's helping to build meaningful relationships and foster community engagement across the UK. Tusharji is also an entrepreneur. He's got strong belief in value-driven leadership and runs a group of businesses across the care sector and real estate and private investments, employing over 250 staff. He says at heart, he's a family man who enjoys the simple things, whether it's a cup of chai with friends, supporting Liverpool Football Club, or capturing life's moments through photography. I'm sure Tusharji's having a fantastic time with the football at the moment. Tusharji, namaste. Welcome to the panel.
Namaste, Sumitji, and it's great to be here to talk about this important topic about mental health. Just a little bit of background on my journey. I would say mental health was something I really didn't feel impacted me. Those that probably know me see me as somebody as very positive, can do, and very smiling and always jolly. But I think around 2019 onwards, I really started going through a journey. One of our businesses was struggling, very close to closure. We were losing significant money, and that's when I started seeing the signs of mental health. And then we had the pandemic, and the pandemic was some of the highs in my life, where I probably went on to do some amazing things, but also some of my lows, losing both my parents. And my daughter was also very ill during this time. So had lots of personal challenges, but also lots of highs. And I realized that my mental health was impacted. But actually in 2019, when I identified that I was going through this journey, it was really nice to speak to people and take the opportunity to actually go on a journey. And it's that journey that actually allowed me from 2020 to 2025 to get through some of the lows that I had and some of the highs. And I'm not a mental health expert. I'm still on a journey, but what I hope to do is to share some of my lessons, my experiences today, to really make people realize that actually mental health is something that does affect us all, but it's also something that our ancient rishis also identified, and they gave us the tools and the techniques to help manage that. And it's only when you go through the lows that you realize these teachings, these philosophies, these practices actually do make a real difference to our lives. And hopefully, if you can just take one bit of inspiration from this conversation, I know that that will have an impact and will help you in your day-to-day lives. So thank you all for coming to this webinar, and I look forward to sharing my journey and my insights. Namaste.
Thank you very much, Tushar, for that opening remarks. And you're right. When I do think of you, it's very jovial, very happy, and so it's humbling to hear, that you've had a journey and a story. And I think you mentioned the pandemic there. I think a lot of us can relate. A lot happened, a lot of highs, a lot of lows. And so thank you for sharing. Next, we'll go on to Vishalji Shah, who has a strong foundation in engineering, holding a degree in electronics and software engineering, and also an MBA from Warwick Business School. Vishalji's journey took a profound turn after a personal transformation that began in 2012. He's now left behind the corporate world and is embracing what he's calling his true calling, which is guiding others towards healing and spiritual growth. He's a certified meditation teacher and past life regression practitioner. Vishalji dedicates his life to helping people overcome suffering in relationships, health, careers, and business. His work is rooted in connecting with the superconscious mind, uncovering the origins of challenges, whether it's in this life or a past life or ancestral lineage, and supporting individuals in making meaningful progress on their spiritual path. Beyond his work, Vishalji is a devoted family man, cherishing every moment with his wife and 2 children, living each day with presence and gratitude, fully committed to supporting and uplifting those around him. And when he's not doing that, he's meditating, exploring other worlds. I'll send a link later on, but you can catch Vishalji on livewithmindfulness.com. Vishalji, namaste, welcome to the panel. Please, could I have some opening remarks?
Namaste, Sumitji, and namaste, everyone. Thank you for the introduction, Sumitji. So, yes, like he said, my journey kind of started back in 2012 when I was in the corporate world. I had to leave everything behind, and I went through a phase where you could call it the dark night of the soul, or, a very dark phase in your life when everything kind of hits the rock bottom. So your finances, your family, relationships, health as a result suffers. So I was trying to find a way out. And a lot of us, when we are in this kind of dark space or times, we try to find, we go to everywhere that we can get help. And sometimes, there is no help that you can get. The only help that I got at that time, and I was lucky being brought up as a Jain, although I do not say I'm religious or, follow any religion in particular, more spiritual. At that time, I was taken to one of the places where they meet when there was Samantari happening, or the the Pratikaman, as they say. And I met the person who'd come from India who was preaching, and I just went. He held my hand for 2 minutes, and he told me, Vishal, just start meditating. Meditation is the answer. So from then on, I started meditating every day for an hour and a half each day, sitting down and going within myself. As I started slowly over time, it took me about 6 months. It does take a little bit of time. I came out of the space that I was in, of the dark times that I was suffering. And I found a way out without help from anybody else externally, whether it was medical or otherwise. And the methods that I used and I found, the tools that I came across helped me get out, is what I share now. It came to a point where, the paranoia was such that I couldn't even step out of my own house. The fear, I could see things, I could feel things that, a normal human being couldn't see or feel. And it was only later that I found out that actually, you might have heard the word Kundalini, which nowadays is used, like a cheap word. But it was later that I found out that it actually had risen within me, and it had, I was not prepared for it. But this is what I share. This is how now, after doing all of that in terms of meditations, practice, etc., I'm able to connect to people's superconscious mind. The superconscious mind that knows everything about you. It knows about all the lives you've taken, all the lives you're going to take. It knows about any ancestral lineage or anything that's affecting you, that is causing the health issues, the financial abundance issues, the relationship issues. Because if you look at it, those are just the symptoms. And once you know where the root cause is, and that's with the help of the superconscious, you're able to let go of it, and hey, the symptoms disappear. Okay, so that's a little bit about myself. Thank
Thank
you.
you so much, Vishalji. Thank you for sharing. I'm super interested in, past life regression. And I think recalling moments from the Mahabharata, where Arjun is speaking to Krishna Bhagwan and Krishna saying, I remember all of our past lives when we were friends together. So maybe we'll touch on that. Third on the panel is Hanuman Das, who is the founder of an organization called Go Dharmic. He's written several books, Power of Dharma, Moving Mountains, and Pearls of Wisdom. Has previously run an organization called Origin Global to do with finance and Forex. Very successful. We've had lots of conversations together ourselves. He's been on the Vishal podcast with me. I encourage you all to watch that. But to be leading an organization such as Go Dharmic, which is truly global, has thousands of volunteers. I'm getting emails all the time. Join me in the Himalayas. Let's do this trip together. We're feeding food in all these wonderful places. So Hanumanji, welcome to the panel. Please give us 5 minutes opening remarks.
Thank you. Namaste, everybody. Let's see. Can you hear me okay?
Yep, we can hear you. Go ahead.
Oh, great. It says unmute on. Namaste, everyone. Thank you so much for having it. We've got exactly 100 people on here, and I'm here to learn from all of these wonderful speakers as well as share something. I'm a son to wonderful parents, husband to a wonderful wife, and father to 2 wonderful kids. So very, very blessed just to be a normal family person, but was very moved by a great saint called Neem Karoli Baba, who many consider an incarnation of Hanumanji. And at the moment where this great saint came into my life, I don't feel that there's such a thing called mental health struggle that should touch any of us. If Hanumanji is there, if that spirit is there of boundless happiness. So we talk about a lot of things to do with seva, helping people, and I believe that Hinduism and Sanatana Dharma has thousands of years of mental health science that we can all learn from, and we don't need actually any other resources apart from what has come before us from all these great teachers and saints and sages, and so I hope to just highlight a few things what they've said from some text. Today we were reading Gita. Every Wednesday we do a Bhagavad Gita classes from 6 to 7, which I love to welcome anybody who wishes to join from 6 to 7. But today's verses we spoke about the mind. So I'm going to repeat exactly what we spoke about in those mind, where Krishna Bhagwan is talking about the mind and how the mind can impact us, and hopefully that based on that there will be some things that we can all remember in times of any difficulty. So thank you.
Thank you, Hanumanji. Thank you for sharing. And I think it's very apt. You mentioned that within Hindu Dharma, there are a richness of wisdom, of things that we can do, pearls of wisdom that can help us uncover or not be so affected by this thing called mental health. And the reason I find that so interesting is the stats are somewhat the opposite. It's something like 14.7% of Indians men say they have depression. And I think back to the struggles I have in my life growing up and identity and this and that. And I think about my parents' generation, many of you on this call today who have moved country, fled persecution, dealt with racism. The challenges are different for each generation. So it's interesting to me that we have such rich diversity within our Dharma, such wisdom within our texts, and things like the Vedas and Upanishads. Yet, in spite of all of that, there still seems to be a problem. I've got lots and lots of stats and figures, but I think people can research some of those themselves, and maybe we dive deep into some of the conversations. So, the first question I have then, and it's an open floor, whoever wants to address that, is maybe what are some of the unique challenges to men's mental health within the UK Hindu community? Everyone has some type of mental health issue, but what is it about the UK Hindu community that is maybe a unique challenge? I'll put a topic out there, perhaps is fear of being judged or shame from each other or society. I don't know if that rings true.
I think that's a really good question to start with, because when we look back at the Gita, we have three different states of mind. We have the tamas mind, which is inertia, very lazy. We have the rajas mind, which is very agitated or very um, ego-driven potentially. And then we have the sattvic mindset, which is very calm and is focused on doing the work, but not worrying about the outcome. And I think in today's modern world, you know, us as a community, we're very high achieving. You know, when Rishi Sunak became prime minister, I think each and every one of us felt an immense sense of pride that, somebody from our community is leading our country. And we see that in all walks of life, from, professional services to business to the health service. Wherever you find our society, we are always at the top. But I think that also creates a bit of a pressure, and it's a pressure that we put on ourselves because we get very rageous, we get very agitated. Why haven't I not got this promotion, or why am I not driving this car? And I think what we have to realize, the one thing that I realized is it's important that we are driven. We need to have that drive because we have that skill. We're empowered with it. It's a waste of a talent, but we should do it for a bigger cause, a bigger purpose. And when you have a bigger purpose in your life, the ego gets subdued. And at that point, the mental health challenges also get done. So if you don't, for example, get that promotion, you were not meant to get it. Your duty, your path is for a different purpose. And you realize that. You don't feel depressed, you don't feel agitated. And I think learning from that is very difficult because you can only do that when you retrospectively look back and say, well, why did I not do this? Why did that not happen? But everything happens for a reason. And it's our karma, our actions, which leads us to this state. And I think sometimes we get very agitated in that moment. Why not me? Why this? And I think we need to take a step back and say, what is the universe? And I remember the question in 2019, what is the universe teaching me today? What is the lesson here? Am I on the right path? Is this sitting to my values or my sanskars? And I think that's something that will help us with our mental health. Sometimes when we're in a very tamas situation, when people are very lazy, depressed, it's very difficult for them to even get out of their bed to do things. And there was times in the last 5 years where I felt like that. But I think having people around you identifying that and them helping you and encouraging you also helps. So I think coming back to that question, I think we've become very materialistic in our as a society, and we need to recognize that actually, is that serving our purpose or is it hindering our purpose?
Thank you, Tushar. There's quite a few things to unpack there. I mean, certainly pressure, right? We are a society that does really, really well in all walks of life, all arenas of life. But I think what you mentioned, like it's almost cyclical. If you're stuck in bed, you can't get out of bed because you're, depressed or you haven't got a job or things are not going your way. What's that fine balance? How do you tip into, being okay with it? Because if that's your reality day in, day out, I don't think you yourself can come out of that so easily. You mentioned having a support network and other people. Any tips or maybe what helped you get out of bed when it was hard to?
I think the one thing when I was in that situation was actually the friends and the family that were there. It was the little WhatsApps, it was the phone calls, it was just somebody popping around for a cup of chai, with no agenda, just seeing how I was. And I think that the power of those little things is very important. And it's something that from a young age we're taught to, but as we get busy in our lives, we forget about that. But actually, those little interactions help you reconnect with your purpose, that people do care about you, that people do want to help you. Um, but I think the other thing is we need to, before we get to that state, is bulletproof ourselves and create the routines and the practices that help us when we do have these curveballs in our life, whether it's a loss of a loved one, whether it's financial pressure, relationship pressure, we actually realize this is just a journey and it will pass. And I remember one rule that in 2019 in a journal that came across, and it said, will it matter in 5 seconds? Will it matter in 5 minutes? Will it matter in 5 hours? Will it matter in 5 days? Will it matter in 5 months? Will it matter in 5 years? And if it matters in 5 years, that's very important. Everything else, it will pass.
That's a good tip. Thank you for sharing. Vishalji, you speak to lots of people who are trying to overcome challenges. Have you seen anything that's quite unique to men's mental health in the UK Hindu community?
Thanks, Sumit ji. And from following on from what Tushar ji said, you know, judgment is obviously a big one. We've all grown up with that, and especially Asian Hindu families, we've grown up with, oh, you can't tell things to your neighbor or your friends. If you're going through certain hard times, they'll talk about it, and the community knows about it. So I think because of us being such a close community, there is that fear of judgment. And I'd like to say here that, most of us, and in fact, all of us, we operate from a very robotic mind. We've got this unconscious mind, which kind of it has its patterns, and we repeat these patterns over and over again, not knowing how it is that we can come out of them. And these patterns we've brought on from our past lives, from our ancestry too. And this is the main problem here, is we have no idea where all these mental health issues are coming from, because our conscious mind, if you think of an iceberg, is only about the top part of the iceberg, which is what you can see. But what's brewing underneath it is the 80-90% of the iceberg, which we can't even see, but it's there, and it's massive. Now, to be able to go in and work out what the unconscious mind stores. I mean, for example, Carl Jung, a popular psychologist back in the late 1800s, said, "Until you make your unconscious conscious, it will direct you, and you will call it fate." A lot of times, oh, nasib che, that's what we say, right? That he had to go through this, but actually, no. We are creators. That's what we have to accept, and we can work with what we are holding. And a good example I can give you is this lady who came up to me and goes to me. She's a pediatrician, works for the NHS. I've got this heartache, but I can't really, I don't know where it's coming from. I'm worried because I've got a 5-year-old child, and I don't know what's going to happen if this escalates and maybe becomes turns into a heart attack or something like that, right? So in the session, what we did was we connected to a Superconscious. What it does is, it takes us on a journey. I'm just like a facilitator. The work happens through me, and I don't do anything. But what it showed us was that 2 lives back, she was actually murdered by her stepmother, who had hit her with a sickle that they used to harvest wheat back in India, and it had struck her there. Now, the thing is, the pain was there because she hadn't forgiven her stepmom. And the moment she forgave her, because it was obviously 2 lives back, I made her understand that, look, there's no point holding a grudge. And this is a lot of the time, this is what happens. We hold grudges, we are resentful against others, and then comes all these issues in our lives. The moment she said, I forgive her, the pain just disappeared and went away. So this kind of work, where, we are all able to do it. It's not me that I'm special, that I'm able to do it. We're all able to do this. We all have capabilities where we are able to meditate, go within us, access this part of our unconscious mind, and figure out what's actually going on with it, such that we are able to get out of any mental health issues or any issues that we might be having in our lives.
Brilliant, thank you. I think we're coming on to sort of like some of the solutions maybe, and how we can overcome such mental health issues. And I think that Hanumanji, you said at the start that we shouldn't be touched by this problem of mental health. Are there specific practices or rituals or mantras that can aid in this mental well-being?
Is that for me?
Yeah, sure.
Oh, okay. So just coming back to the problem part of it as well, and just kind of from our personal lived experience, like many of us are Hindu men living in the UK, growing up here. I just think back to my own father, who was the hardest working human being I've ever seen, working 2 shops and, working day and night. And I think back, he never ever told me when he was sick that he's suffering or he's feeling pain. He took it all on himself. or if we were short of money growing up, or things were difficult. He was obviously working 18, 20 hours a day sometimes, to keep us. In fact, I remember the doctor once saying to him, "You're working so hard that every year you're working, you're losing 4 years of your life. You need to slow down." And he never showed that he was sick or suffering or sad, or even in sad moments he wouldn't express that. And looking back, I see that this dharma of fatherhood or responsibility for the family and taking care of people is across the community. Like you see that with the grandparents and the uncles and the aunts. I've never heard many people saying, "Oh, I'm so down, I'm so out, I'm so despondent," like Arjuna's in chapter 1. You don't really hear that much, and I kind of wish they did speak up a little bit and share that when they were feeling that, so we could also share in that and help them. So in one way it's quite inspiring, but at the same time it's also sad, and that we can't share that with them during their difficult moments. You mentioned a really interesting point, Sumit, that 14% of men are depressed. There's a similar thing that only 20% of Hindus read any sacred text ever in their life. So, so
Pretty
we
surprising, hey?
can read into that like 80% of us don't touch any sacred text or explore any wisdom tradition. So that for me, like the Hinduness is nothing to do with the philosophy. It's only whatever they learn from their families. They're capturing that. But one of my the great teacher who was head of Harvard University psychology department, Ram Dass, Richard Alpert. So there's a photo of him here. He was the happiest human being that I've ever met. And I was a trader working in financial markets, making a lot of money, doing really well with a lot of people. But the lesson in financial markets for me was, this is a dog eat dog world. Like the first day of my work, somebody told me that this is a dog eat dog world. Like you perform well, you will get more money, you will succeed more. If you don't perform, you'll drop off and you'll be gone. But what Ram Dass learned from India was Vasudeva Kutumbakam, or that we are all one, sab ek. And that view changed the perspective, what he told me, from role to soul. And he said, "I'm not interested in your role, I'm interested in your soul." So, I think that perspective shift, that if it's all up here, it is going to go up and down a lot. Whereas if it's here, this is quite stable, even if it goes up and down. And so I wanted to read some verses from the Gita that we shared, but maybe I could share that for when you're talking more solution
Sure.
part. I think a problem part is that role, that if you are only the role, then there's inevitable suffering. But if you are here, then there's a sense of balance that you can achieve.
So, Hanuman, you mentioned your father, and he worked tirelessly, and I'm sure lots of people on this call can probably relate, either their parents in a similar fashion or in their current daily lives. I can see pictures of people I know that work hard. I see their Instagrams, I see their LinkedIn's. People are out there performing for their families with whatever challenges they have. Young children, all sorts of different variables. Plus, there's that pressure to do really well because we're a well-performing society. Then there's all the work. Then there's the shaka work. Then there's the other thing you said you'd get involved in. Like, the list is endless. Yet, I think we take these things on as responsibilities. Then we say it's our dharma to do these things. We have to do them right. We have to do them well. It's important to do. It's important for my society. Thinking back to what you said about your father, you wish he was able to share with you what he was going through, and maybe he had a brotherhood or a group of people that he could. The stats show otherwise, that generations before, it wasn't such a prevalent thing. The term mental health wasn't even a concept, say, a few decades ago. And actually, someone's asked me to ask a question. I think it's quite apt, actually. How can men express their emotions openly without being misunderstood or seen as weak? I think that's a critical question. It's prevalent across generations. So I don't know if anyone has the answer to that. How can men express their emotions openly without being misunderstood or seen as weak? And I think those last couple of words are quite important.
I think, Sumit, before we even do that, for all the people listening, I'm just going to do a little exercise which shows the power of emotions. If I was to ask you, where were you this time last year? What were you doing? What room were you with? Who were you with? Most of us probably wouldn't be able to remember that unless we looked at our diary, our journal, unless it was somebody's birthday or something like that, and then we'd have that memory. But I guarantee in the next 5 seconds, the majority of you, if I said to you, where were you on the 11th of September 2001? You'll all remember, if you experienced the Twin Towers, you'll probably remember where you were, where you saw the TV, who you were with, how you were feeling, those emotions. And that was a very emotional visual thing that impacted everybody. Now, emotions, if we don't deal with them, become suppressed. And generally, negative emotions, we will suppress them. Our body will train us to hide it because we don't want that pain and that suffering. And emotions are good because when used in the right way, can really be used in a positive way. I look at Liverpool Football Club, I use the example, but when you're an underdog, when you're under a challenge, but the team rallies together, you have that mentality of working together, that emotional, you can overcome big challenges. But emotions is something that we have to learn to talk and deal with. And also sometimes when you talk to somebody, they can also tell you actually what you're thinking is an illusion. It's not reality. It's just in your head. You've just gone through this and created a story to fit the narrative. And sometimes somebody will say, I think somebody says something, you go, oh, that person doesn't like me, or they've got this issue with me. They say, no, it didn't mean it. The reason they said that was this. So I think learning to control our emotions and understand our emotions is very important. But I'll let Vishalji and Hanumanji talk about some tools and techniques because they're the more experts in that area.
Sure. Just quickly though, I think you make a good point about emotions there, and I know this topic is focused around men's mental health, but if we compare to the superior gender, the females, they have a larger emotional capacity. They're able to feel emotions deeper, and I have this argument with my wife all the time that you have a lot more emotion than me, or sometimes men think more rationally or with safety in mind. You want to just get the job done or move forward or grind and grunt. So yeah, I think emotions is an important one. Vishalji, do you maybe have something to share about our emotional capability, capacity, and how we overcome such challenges?
Sure, yeah. As young children, men are always brought up to be tough boys. You're not supposed to cry, and if you cry, then you're being called a girl. And we've been raised with all those kind of beliefs, and I think that it plays a big part when we grow up. And we are supposed to keep our emotions, we're supposed to suppress them, and we're not supposed to show them out. But there's an amazing TEDx talk by Brené Brown, if you've ever come across her, millions of views on YouTube, the power of vulnerability. And this is what I encourage people to be vulnerable, to open up their hearts, to be able to express themselves. And this requires a good balance, because I know a lot of men, want to be seen as the macho man, the strong man who, are strong outside and strong within. But when we come to, when we go on this journey, the journey of spirituality, and, this is where Dharmic comes in, whether religiously or, spirituality, we have to find that good balance between the masculine and the feminine. Because we are masculine and feminine beings, whether you're a man or a woman. And when you find that balance, you are able to open up your heart, you're able to be more compassionate, you're able to show love where it's needed, and also able to express yourself very clearly. So men are able to do it with practice, especially when we go into the energetic level and you work on, and this is the work I help people do, is on the chakras, where we open up the chakras, we work on them, and then automatically comes the expression, being able to say as it is and not fearing any kind of judgment.
Thank you. So there's a few things there, like vulnerability, emotional courage, having the ability to express our emotions. And then you're talking about self-work, chakras, and even doing things like dhyan and meditation and being able to channel. So one of my mentors who's known within our community has told me about, situations are going to occur. If you have the capacity and the capability to deal with them, then you can navigate them. The problems aren't going to stop just because you're a yogi or you've read the Gita or something. You are embedded then with the tools to overcome such challenges. Hanumanji, I just want to move to something that you were saying earlier, maybe, and see if you can help us understand the Kshatriya spirit. How can we use this warrior-like spirit to redefine what emotional courage might be?
Thanks. Well, I think there's only one being. I mean, my name is Hanuman Das, so I will only speak about Hanumanji and look at that example. And when we think about when he was in Lanka, his tail was set on fire, and he used that tail being set on fire to create a positive outcome. And I feel that if we look at it all as grist for the mill, so even the good, even the bad, like when I was with Ramdas, half of his body had a heart attack. His hand was like this. He can barely produce the words that he was saying. He was quite elderly, but he had this massive stroke, and he just took it all as grace. Like, smiling and just being that. Whereas another person, they have a tummy ache and they look like the world is ending, like, they're carrying that thing. So he took it all as grace. And if there's two things in the Sundarkand where firstly Hanuman says, "Oh brother, if all of the pleasures of heaven and liberation itself were weighed, they wouldn't match the joy of meeting noble ones or saints, just even for a moment." So being in touch with people who can uplift your spirit can change that whole journey, because you're touching something which is on a different spectrum. And then the following verse, Hanumanji says, "Prabhasi nagar kiji sabakaja, hridaya rakhi kaushalapura raja." Keeping the Lord Ram enshrined within your heart, go about your work. He says fire will become cool. It says, oh, okay, invoking the Lord name of Ram, go about your work and enter the city of Lanka. Succeed in the mission. Fire will become cool. Poison will turn into nectar. Enemies will become your friends. The ocean will appear the size of a cow's hoof. The Himalaya will become the size of a grain of sand. Everything will become easy for one who has Ram's grace. Like, from that point of view, it's a different outlook. And I don't think it's about a hero mindset. I think it's head or heart. I think it's like just dropping the ego or living from the mind. Like, yes, the business can come or the business can go. Yes, the relationship can stay or it can end. In fact, that is probably going to happen for all of us when we die anyway, like with all of it. So I think the ups and downs, you can either kind of live on the waves or you can go deep into the ocean and like live from being. Live from the presence. And just quickly, I will take a moment just to read some verses from the Gita, if it's okay, Sumit. Is that okay? Just quickly.
Sure, absolutely.
I'm not giving you much choice, but I'm sorry. Okay, so there's a section in chapter 6, verse 5. The mind is a friend or your enemy. A person must elevate oneself by the mind and never allow oneself to become degraded, for the mind is both one's best friend as well as one's enemy. The mind that has been conquered becomes a friend, but the one who has failed to control his mind, it will become an enemy. In all circumstances, no matter what happens, hot or cold, happiness or distress, honor or dishonor, one who controls one mind will achieve peace and will become united with Brahman. A person of discipline who is complete in both knowledge and wisdom, so knowledge and wisdom are the two values, whose senses are controlled, is situated in transcendence. This is the state of yoga. This is the state of being connected. Such a person can see equality in the world. Such a person will see a close friend, a companion, an enemy, a common acquaintance, the hateful, relatives, all that is good and all that is evil. Will see Brahman in all of that, but still go about their work. So I think I'm just going to go forward to a few other verses. And in this section, I'd love for some of you to read it if you haven't, but Krishna mentions the word happiness multiple times. Happiness, happiness. So the goal here, what's our goal? It's not like mental health problem. The goal is to be in a state of happiness. So if we're looking at that, it is yoga, or all the spiritual sadhana and practices which remove suffering. And they only arise, this can only arise if we live with some regulation in food and recreation and activities, with regulated in sleep and in wakefulness, regulated within food. As a lamp in a windless place never wavers, so the yogi who disciplines the mind achieves happiness and will not waver. Now, Arjuna will go on to say that this is harder than controlling the wind, Krishna. This is not easy. But we can see that there is something that, Hanumanji gives us that example, or that, being of how to live in a state where he's doing so much. Like he's running to the Himalayas and picking up, sacred herbs to save lives. He's rescuing Sita. He's serving Ram as he's homeless. He's doing all of these various things. And doing it with a smile, and like working in that challenges. And Krishna is smiling in the Gita as well. Hanuman smiling in the Ramayana. So I think having that energy of open-heartedness and boundless happiness, which Krishna describes, and knowing that's already there as the natural state.
I think it's very apt. A lot of people, I think, know that. And maybe the way we frame the topic of mental health seems to always be a sort of negative slant. How do people cope with it? How do people deal with it? But I think you're talking about the other side of the coin, where maybe once you have mastered some things, or Hanumanji had Ram Bhagwan, Arjuna had Krishna Bhagwan. We have our Gita, should we decide to pick up and read it. So Tusharji, a question for you then. What role has community and brotherhood played in your mental well-being, especially maybe within a spiritual context? Can't hear you.
I think you're on mute.
Nope, can't hear you. Technical challenges. Vishalji, maybe you could jump in. Brotherhood, sense of community, having people around you.
Yeah, sure. In terms of community, I think one of the biggest problems that also men have is loneliness, right? So we may have families around us, we may have friends around us, but still within we may feel that lonely, that there's something that's missing. And when there is community as well, of course that helps. But if you're feeling lonely within, then I think the only answer is going within. And no matter how many people you will have around you, if that loneliness is due to apathy, boredom, you may be in a career or a business that you're no longer passionate about, I feel like once you find out what your purpose in this world is, each one of us has come here for a reason. We've been born here on this planet. There's a purpose for each one of us. It's just that through life, as we go about it, navigating with all the societal pressure and everything that we go through in education system, etc., we get lost. And that when we get lost, that's where we're doing something that we're no longer passionate about. And then we get lonely, we feel bored, etc. So the idea is to connect to your true self, connect to who you truly are, and find out the reason why you were born. What was the reason that you're here in the first place? And once you find that, you're doing something that you're really gives you satisfaction, gives you fulfillment. And when that happens, you won't feel lonely at all.
I absolutely hear what you're saying, and I do like it, but I'm going to be skeptical here for a moment. For someone that's in a situation, going within is last on the list. I'm firefighting the day, trying to get the bills paid or the medicine in or whatever it might be, the unique challenges that we all have. Going within doesn't just no, that's not going to do it for me. I need someone to come and help, and I need someone to talk to right now. It's just sort of where my mind went with that. Tusharji, are you back online?
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can.
Yeah.
Go on.
So I
Just
think this
to,
is a
sorry,
really
just to kind of answer that, if you don't mind, Sumitji.
Absolutely. Go ahead. Go ahead.
So that's where I was. That's where I was in 2012. Trying to resist, trying to fight everything that was happening, right? And that's naturally what we do. But it's only when it gets to an extreme where you don't find answers outside. You don't find you're trying to resist something. It doesn't give you a solution. You're trying to fight something. It's not going to getting you anywhere. It's only then that the realization set in that, hang on, maybe the answer is within. And the moment that I was given that 2-minute advice, and I started practicing, and it only takes maybe at that time, of course, it was an hour and a half, but now I only do it for less than an hour, just going within and connecting to myself. And I tell you this, once you do and you start seeing the results, no matter how small they are, you want to build on that. And that will encourage you to keep on going on and on and on. Sorry, Tushar.
No, that's fine. I think this is a really interesting conversation, and we all have the tools and understanding, but when somebody's in a very difficult place, those things seem too far away for them to reach out. And I think the Bhagavad Gita, the first chapter, is a prime example of that, because in that, Arjuna is not doing his karma, his duty. He is a Kshatriya, he needs to fight. But in that first chapter, he's coming up with all the excuses as to why he shouldn't do this, why he shouldn't kill his uncles, his cousins, his family. And Krishna just listens to him. And at the end of the chapter, he's exhausted all of his excuses, all of his emotions, and he falls to the feet of Krishna and says, "Tell me the way." And I think this is a very powerful thing. When somebody is going through a mental health challenge, it's compassion that we need to show that person. We need to be there for them, help them, and say there is a path, there is a route. And it comes back to, when you come back to the original question about community, if you don't feel that you have somebody around you, a purpose, somebody to live for, you go into this dark place. You start having these negative thoughts. And this is why community, a Sangathan, is really important. Just that simple conversation, that cup of chai with somebody, that laughter. When we're laughing, we release those real positive energies and vibes, and it creates that approach. So I think community is important, but also when somebody is in a difficult place, sometimes rather than telling them they're in that place, give them something, ask them something. What would you like to do? How can let me make you that food? Let me take you to that restaurant. Being for them, giving them little tasks, little challenges. And I've seen that with some of my close family, where they've been in a very dark place and they don't have that level of spiritual or intellectual awareness to go on this journey. So you have to give them micro tasks. And slowly and gradually, they start coming out of this path that they're in and start realizing. And, we talk about the chakras, where we want to reach a higher level of consciousness. If you are down at the bottom of the chakras, where all you're thinking about is food, how am I going to pay my bills, talking about, building, doing seva, giving, all of these things, it's too far away. So when we're helping people with mental health, we need to try and understand where they are, and then say to them, take little steps and work towards that. And as they start taking the little steps, they build momentum, they start walking with you, then they start running with you. And before you know it, they're on this journey and completing a marathon. And when they look back, they see that. And I think one thing I've learned is we're always looking for how far we have to get to, the gap. But what we fail to look at is how far we've come, or the gain. And it's called the gap and gain philosophy. Our mind is always saying, I need to get here, I need to get here. Nobody looks back and reflects and say, look how far I've come. I've had these challenges, yet through this, I've come through this, and I've gained all these friendships, all these experiences, all this knowledge, all these experiences that has made me a stronger person. I may not reach my destination, but look how far I've come. And sometimes we're always looking for that gap. We're looking for that goal, and we should use that. Journaling is a very powerful tool to see how far we've come. And I remember Shankar Rauji, who was a pracharak, a full-time volunteer when I was just 15, 16, always saying, just write a few days. What did you do? Who did you do it? And it took me 30 years to take that words of wisdom, and how I wish I had done that from that time. But I think journaling is something that really helps. And I think that's something that I would encourage people to do, just so that when you look back in 5 years, think the emotions that you felt, they were just minute. They're compared to where you are now.
Lots of context perspective there. Thank you, Sarji. Very beautifully put as well. And some of the comments coming through on chat, we're talking about taking small habits, smile, be compassionate. And I think these are great things. And we're almost out of time. I knew 1 hour was never going to be enough for a webinar like this. And so we'll definitely put some more on. Everyone's got the link. So just in our remaining few minutes, if I could ask the rest of our panelists to share some other call to actions, takeaway tips, things that people might be able to do daily that can help them on this journey, on this path. Tusharji shared a few there, journaling towards the end. And Nilesh quite nicely has put in the comments about smiling, and someone else has put about small habits. So Vishalji, Hanumanji, some takeaway tips. What can someone do daily that helps them build this capacity, this ability to overcome these daily struggles, this mental health battle that we might have?
Just firstly, before that, I just wanted to share something that I feel that we often try to change people, or even in like trying to give them a practice or help them get better. Whereas I feel like we shouldn't try and change anyone. We should try to love them, even if it's our friend who's suffering, or family member, or partner, or parent, or whatever it. Like trying to change them actually can cause more harm than good. So you are like a doctor coming in to fix something. Better to just love them and give them so much love. And that lightness of that love and that being can actually lift them up, of your presence. Like, the greatest gift, they say that cheesy line, greatest gift is your presence. And, often when we're serving the homeless or vulnerable people in Go Dharmic, like the people on the streets, they are same mental health, like largely mental health causes people to fall into this condition. And what they appreciate more than the food, more than the meals, more than anything, is your presence. That perhaps you're the first person to talk to them and give them some love for a few moments. So I think not trying to change anyone, but just love them. And it's kind of like when we are taking on a sadhana of meditation, for example, we might want to teach everyone in the house, yes, come and meditate with me. But instead, just wake up early, and the small creaks of the house, the steps, and the noise of you waking up early, and slowly the whole environment will change because somebody's doing puja in the house early morning, or they're doing meditation, or they're chanting Ram Nam in the morning, or whatever it is that you do. And those practices slowly will change the environment and the ecosystem, and already change the environment. So perhaps I'm not giving you that tool or that list of items or that exact answer to all the questions, but I think Maharaji said love is the strongest medicine. It's more powerful than electricity, and I really feel that there's something in that. There's like ultimately that's who we are. And many will know Sister Jayanti of Brahma Kumaris. She's really beautiful and wonderful, saintly lady. She said to me something, that if you look at when we're angry, we feel sick, we feel kind of our heart racing, or we sweat, or we feel upset, or we feel that kind of energy. But if you think about when we're in a state of love or happiness, we feel calm, we feel present, we feel comfortable, and our health is actually better, scientifically proven. So, we then should try to kind of be more in that state of balance ourselves, rather than trying to fix someone else. Like often you see someone, oh, why are you feeling so sick? What's wrong with you? Snap out of it. Like somebody's suffering there, and you're giving, that kind of response. Better to try to love them.
Thank you so much, Hanumanji, for sharing. Vishalji, closing thoughts in just a minute, a tool or a tip.
So just to say there, beautifully said, Hanuman Das. Love is a very powerful healing energy, and somebody going through mental health issues, if they're surrounded by love, it can work wonders. I get a lot of people, mothers saying, oh, my son's not feeling well. Can you help him? And when they themselves don't want any help, a third person cannot really come and say, hey, I want to fix him or her. But if somebody who's maybe just starting off on this journey, or wants to start off on this journey of connecting to themselves, such that they don't have to face any mental health issues, I can share 5 methods, which because all of us are unique, and some of us may prefer one over the other. And I always say, practice these 5 methods, see which one works for you, and it will really help you connect to yourself. One is breathwork, as we know. Breathwork is well known. The other is mantra meditation. So you're just chanting. It could be any mantra, and that worked really for me. It really helped me connect to myself. The other is visualization. Just guided meditation, visualizing to meditation. That helps you to connect to yourself. The fourth one is focusing. Focusing is a powerful method. You're just focusing on a dot, or you light a candle and you just focus on it, taking away all your thoughts. That is the beginning of the journey. And the fifth one is observation. Observation is a very, very powerful way of doing this, where you're just observing something for what it is, without questioning it, or without thinking about more about it. It's just looking at it as though you're seeing it for the first time. And if you're looking at something like a cloud or something in nature, and just observing it, it is really, really powerful. So these are 5 methods that people can choose, and if one works for them, that will be good enough.
Thank you very much, Vishalji, for sharing, and thank you to everyone for attending. This hour went by very, very quickly. Big thanks to Sanjay Ji Vadhera, who's helped us put this whole session together. We'll be doing more of these, so remember the link, hssuk.org/men's mental health. We'll share all of the great tips that everyone has shared today. We'll share a copy of the recording, when the next session is. Hopefully it'll be a different host, different panel. This is our family, our parivar. We're all here to help each other. We've spoken just a little bit about men's mental health. There's just about scratched the surface. There's a lot more to talk about. So my call to action for you all, very specifically, is to go away and pick 3 things that you can do daily, whether it's upping your water intake, whether it's doing your Surya Namaskars, whether it's doing the Hanuman Chalisa, I don't know what it is, and share it. Share it online, either with people that we know here, on your LinkedIn, on your Instagram, whatever it might be. I attended this men's mental health webinar today. I took away these great learnings, and I am going to do these 3 things daily. That's my call to action. Hopefully there'll be many, many more, and you can see in the chat window, people are sharing lots and lots of great tips on what to do daily, weekly, and a big thanks again to Tusharji, Vishalji, and Hanumanji, who have shared some of their great tips. We're at the hour. I'd love to carry on speaking, but to everyone, have a great evening. Jai Shri Ram, and I'll see you all very soon. Namaste.